Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining today's webinar on how effective is your employee onboarding. My name is Carl Radford, and I am the Head of Customer Success for ClubsHR. I'd also like to introduce Nicola Shaw from Clubs New South Wales, who will also be joining in the discussions. Nicola, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Today we'll be discussing the importance of effective employee onboarding and its impact on overall employee satisfaction and productivity. As we know, you are all super busy. We've designed this webinar series to be very short and sweet at a maximum of 30 minutes. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free just to type them into the question box within Zoom. Otherwise, feel free to hold questions for the end. We'll leave some time to have a little bit of a chat. All right. So as a very quick overview of the webinar today, we'll have a short introduction just to myself and Nicola and give you a bit of a background on who we are and where we came from. We'll then be covering off what is employee onboarding and why it's so important, best practices for employee onboarding. I'll then be handing over to Nicola, who'll be covering off what happens if employee onboarding goes wrong and some real world examples. Finally, we'll jump into ClubsHR and show you through how we handle and automate employee onboarding and how it can potentially help some of your clubs if you don't have a process in place already. And finally, we'll just have a bit of a webinar wrap up to finish off. So quick introductions. Nicola Shaw, I'm sure some of you may already know her, but just to formally introduce her, Nicola has been practicing employment law for over 7 years. She joined Clubs New South Wales in 2019 as legal counsel and workplace relations. And if you guys haven't spoken to her already, I'm sure you'll speak to her at some stage. Nicola, again, thank you very much for joining today. Can't wait to have a bit more of a chat with you. On the other hand, myself, I'm the Head of Customer Success for ClubsHR. Previous to joining the tech industry and starting up with ClubsHR, I have 10 years of experience running multiple venues, up to about 60 staff across 3 different venues at one stage. So a lot of these topics that we're covering off in the webinar series are pretty close to home for me. I've used applications very similar to ClubsHR to help us manage the operations. So yeah, look forward to getting into everything. So employee onboarding. What is employee onboarding? Again, employee onboarding is a process for introducing new hires to the company culture, values, policies, and procedures. It's designed to help new employees feel comfortable, confident, and valued in their role. So I think in the perfect world, in the onboarding process, it's smooth. Employees love it, managers love it. We get all the information seamlessly, and it's just a painless process. I think, unfortunately, in most real world cases, that's probably not the case, especially in the current climate where we have limited time on our hands and we're wearing multiple hats and trying to get all that information from staff right up at the front and then keeping track of it is a bit of a nightmare. So why is employee onboarding important? Well, again, studies have shown that a well-designed onboarding process can increase employee satisfaction and engagement, reduce turnover, and improve overall productivity. In fact, companies with strong onboarding programs are 58% more likely to retain new hires in the first year. And I think that's a pretty significant metric to pay attention to. So again, in the current climate where we're all struggling to find staff, retention should be front of mind. Never mind this, getting all the right information from your employees to begin the process, as well as communicating clearly your policies and procedures, as well as the club rules is extremely important and it helps you stay compliant. So to cover off some best practices for effective onboarding, obviously capturing crucial information to get going. So make sure you're getting all the right information from your staff straight away is extremely important. This includes, all their personal details, including emergency details, proof of identities, so passports and driver's licenses, obviously tax file numbers and banking information, any licenses or RSAs and RCGs, and obviously as well as emergency contact information. So those are just some of the bare bones what you need. And I'd like you maybe just take a moment to think about how you're currently doing this. Is it a seamless workflow? Is it automated? Are you getting hard copies of everything, soft copies? Where's all this information being stored? And really, how confident are you that you have all this information and it's easily accessible for you when you need it? The next one there is provide clear communication. So obviously, communicate your expectations, responsibility, and goals of your new hire's role. But again, do you have an employee handbook which covers all your policies and expectations of your employees? And have you sat down and clearly communicated to them their role and where you see them in a year's time, or had a chat with them where they plan to be? Personalize the experience. So again, tailoring the onboarding experience to an individual employee, taking into account their unique needs, preferences, and career goals. As I kind of briefly touched on before, have you sat down with them and discussed where they see themselves in a couple of years' time? Do they plan on growing within the business? If so, where? And can you discuss a potential path for them to get there? I think all these little tips and tricks will help you retain those staff and obviously get them more engaged straight away straight off the bat. Make it collaborative, so encourage new hires to ask questions, offer feedback, and participate in team building activities. In the same meeting, you can probably have a bit more of a chat with them around any questions that they have, include them in any upcoming events if you've got any plan for your team, and give them a personalized tour of a club. These are all simple, easy to do, and yet makes them feel really, really welcome. And at the same time, obviously, it helps you clarify the expectations. And finally, providing ongoing support. So, ongoing support and resources throughout the onboarding process is extremely important. And again, makes that new hire feel valued and supported. So in my experience, regular catch-ups are extremely important. Helps you display a bit of empathy and shows that you really care for them and their growth within the club. And also gives them an opportunity to ask any questions along the way if they do have questions on where they're going or how can they get there, or what can they improve. A lot of the times with those catch-ups, I found that staff generally did have quite a lot of questions, and if you gave them the opportunity to ask those questions, they found a lot more valued. Pro tip from my time, if you guys don't do this already, schedule in those catch-ups straight away as soon as you employ them. So put it in your calendar, in their calendar, 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months. That way, again, they know it's coming up and they can feel valued. And sometimes they might, really plan for those 3 months, 6 months, and yearly catch-ups. Employees love feedback, and so that they know they're doing a great job. I'll hand over to Nicola here so she can run through what goes wrong with employee onboarding.
Yeah, thank you, Carol, and thanks for everyone for joining today. I guess I'm going to discuss on, what happens when it goes wrong. And we've listed a number of failings that we see when we talk to clubs. And so the first one is around compliance issues. And if you fail to collect and verify the necessary information, it can result in non-compliance with relevant laws and regulation. It can also result in a number of extra hours work for your payroll staff. And so for an example of that is, with the new superannuation legislation, if an employee doesn't elect a fund, you can't just use your default fund anymore. There's an obligation for your payroll staff to call the ATO to see if they've got a stapled fund, and then put that money into that account. And if they don't, then you can put them into the default fund. So this can create a lot of additional work for your payroll staff if we don't collect the right information. Another compliance issue that we do see is with part-time employees, there is an obligation under the award that requires that in time of engaging a part-time employee, you must agree in writing on the guaranteed hours and also the employee's availability. And usually this is done through a contract of employment, but if you aren't doing this through an onboarding system, it's actually a breach of the award and penalties can attach to that. With payroll problems, I had a club call up just the other week to say, I don't have a signed contract. The employee's been working here for 2 weeks, so I haven't been able to pay them. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward, but under the award, you are required to pay wages within a week or a fortnight. If you haven't collected that employee's bank details, you just can't make payment in time. And again, technically, not only have you breached the award, you've kind of underpaid that employee. So again, it's just a simple problem, but it's still happening in today's day and age. Lack of emergency preparedness. Again, this is around health and safety concerns. If the employee's emergency contact information is not captured, then we don't have a reliable point of contact in a case of an emergency. There also can be breaches of work health and safety legislation, which requires clubs to provide a safe workplace. And to ensure that you're complying a safe workplace, there's an obligation for you to ensure that all new starters are aware of your work health and safety policies and also emergency procedures, equipment handling, training, and all of that. So this is normally done on the onboarding. And although a lot of jobs wouldn't be characterised as high risk in the club industry, new starters do face injuries 3 times more likely at the risk of injury than an ongoing employee. So it is really important that we are teaching them around emergency procedures and policies. And this would be particularly important for your greenskeepers when they're using heavy machinery or chemicals, and often your cleaners are having access to those things. A major concern is the lack of productivity, and what this is saying is that if you don't have a good onboarding process, this can result in decreased productivity and inefficiency because people don't know what their role is and what they need to be doing. It also sets up the whole culture of the club with this onboarding process. If you're disorganised, you're setting that employment relationship for failure. As we say, first impressions do matter, and when we're fighting to keep staff, it is important that we have a clear process and everyone knows what they're doing, what their role is, and they've signed all the right contracts and policies. And finally, legal consequences. And with the new positive duty to prevent sexual harassment, it is vital that we're now providing policies to employees when they commence. We recommend that clubs review their onboarding procedures to ensure adequate training on sexual harassment is signed off, and also that you do give new starters policies and procedures. And if you fail to give them your policy and procedures on sexual harassment, it's likely to be a breach of your positive duty under the new sexual harassment laws. And if you do need policies and procedures, we do have them available to members through Clubs New South Wales. Thank you, Carol. I'll hand you back over.
Awesome. Great, thank you very much, guys. What we'll do now is we'll just jump into, sorry, Nicola, thank you very much. I didn't get an opportunity to appreciate that one. Guys, moving forward also, just to give you a quick update, some of those policies, procedures, and documents are all going to be part of ClubsHR and a new release that we're going to be putting up very, very soon. So if you do have any questions or want to have a look at that, please let us know. Otherwise, back to onboarding around ClubsHR. So we've recently released our first phase of employee onboarding. The first phase was really designed to help automate that onboarding process, so to capture all that crucial information that we've been discussing above. Again, rather than you guys having to request it via email and keep track of it, so on and so forth, it's all done through the platform. Very easy, just click a button to add a new employee. Once I add it, it automatically sends them the link, which I'll show you all of that in just a second. It also allows you to communicate out, and again, automate that process, your employee handbooks, your benefits, your workplace policies, health and safety documents, so on and so forth. So again, just removes having to think about it every single time and send it by email, however else you might be sending it, and it just automatically happens for you every single time. And finally, obviously where all that information is stored is also probably just as important. I feel like, at least back in my day, and it might be different for everyone else, but I had files upon files of licenses and everything I needed printed out and on paper and various files, and that can be hard sometimes to locate everything when you need it in emergency situations. So everything is stored for you on ClubsHR. It's all digital. You can locate it in seconds, download it as you need. There's some quick answers. You can have a quick look at when expiries are happening, and numbers, so on and so forth. So when you need that information, it's right at your fingertips. And obviously for security purposes, as there has been a few big breaches around the place recently, everything that is, all the documents for all employees are stored up on a separate server completely to our ClubsHR platform, and is added security to run that server too. So again, it's been siloed off to protect everyone's information, and only admins on the account, so admin permissions, are actually able to view and download that information. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to jump into ClubsHR very quickly. I hope everyone can see my screen there. And I'm just opened up a bit of a demo account just to show you guys through some of the employee onboarding processes within the application. So the first thing I'd show you is really setting up the onboarding process. So pretty straightforward. This is a little checkbox that helps you automate the whole process. So the moment we add a new employee in the background there, you put in their first name, last name, and email address, or automatically send them a welcome email, as well as a link to prompt them to update all their onboarding information. You can choose to get their superannuation information straight away along with that onboarding process. You can obviously, most clubs will make it mandatory, and we'll also send them a standard form along with it. So if they want to nominate their own, they can, and then upload it back in through the portal. And finally, company documents, which is really, really handy. Again, so you can customize what you want to come back from your employees, and whether it's mandatory or not. So for argument's sake, you know, a few easy ones, we've got the identification, so passport and driver's license. It does require a number. In this case, I didn't say it requires expiry dates. Potentially you would have it in there, and there's probably something mandatory that you'll want from all your staff. Some other examples are RSAs, RCGs, first aid certificates, so on and so forth. Down the bottom here, we can see that we've actually we've added in some documents that we're going to send to an employee. So if I just click on this one very quickly, just to open it up. This is just an example. I hope it might take a second just to load there for us, guys. There we go. So this is a fair one, but again, you guys are more than welcome to include any documents that you like along with it. So that might be your staff handbook, any policies or procedures or anything like that along those lines. You can include within it an option for them to sign off, obviously, for all those documents. So they'll receive it, have a read of it, sign it, and scan it back up and upload it. Or just take a picture and upload it. And therefore, you've got everything digitally and saved back in ClubsHR for you. So once you've set up that whole process, an email obviously gets fired through to your employee. And just to give you a quick understanding of what basically it's just an online form. Again, everything's really secure for an employee. This is all they see. I'll go through, collect all their personal information, address info, emergency contact details, so on and so forth. Their bank details, the tax file declaration. It's really easy to use form for employee, as well as super info, and then company documents where they can choose. They can import their document number, upload the document, put expiry dates to them, document numbers, so on and so forth. So the process is really, really easy for an employee. It doesn't take them too long. If they have that information on hand, they can take photos or scan it directly from their phone and just import it straight up. So again, rather than you guys having to chase them the whole time on it, or get the paper copies and save them in a file somewhere, everything just gets automatically synced back in the account. So jumping back into my profile and back into the document section, which we got, this is where all the information feeds back through. So again, at a click of a button, you guys can jump in and find all the necessary information you need. So all emergency contact information, as well as all my address info and full name, so on and so forth, bank details, tax file declaration, superannuation information, if I'm nominated my own fund or if I'm going to go with my employers, so on and so forth, and company documents. So again, all identification, RSAs, RCGs, so on and so forth. Within this, you do have the option to decline. So if you see they've submitted something that's, who knows, a passport or driver's license, maybe it's not a clear enough image for you guys, maybe you need more information, you can decline it, which will then send the employee an email again to go back in and update that information correctly. And that's the same for every single tab. So once you get this all come back through, you've got the ability to approve or decline it. Once it's approved, it's locked in and saved within the platform. Alternatively, you can decline it and get them to re-update that information until it's correct. With everything you need. So really, really easy. Again, click on the individual icons here to download the information. Off you go. So I guess another question is, and a lot of clubs that we've rolled out recently, you know, that is employee onboarding, and you know, that's new employees coming on board. But you know, certainly some of the clubs who've been with us for a little bit of time have found it a really good exercise for them, just to get, you know, all the information back up to date from all employees. So even though they might have some of that information partially here and there, and you've got the ability to update that for an employee yourself, they use it as an exercise just to go back through to all employees. So you can hit this little resend onboarding button, which will actually resend that employee onboarding form to a current employee, for argument's sake. So if you would like an exercise, just make sure you've got all your information up to date. It's super simple. You can do it in a couple of seconds, and you just quickly send out that information to everybody. That way, again, saves you time, gets rid of all the paper, stores it all in one central location, and off you go. So that's everything about employee onboarding within ClubsHR. Again, this is purely the first phase of the release, and we are working on improving functionality and adding additional reporting and bits and pieces within the platform, which I'm sure you'll all see very, very soon come out. And I guess we'll just wrap up the webinar with everyone. So in conclusion, look, effective employee onboarding is essential for building a strong and engaged workforce. By following some of the practices we gave you above, personalizing it, making it collaborative, look, automating, I think is a massive thing here. Again, just takes it off your head. Don't need to worry about it. It just happens in the background for you. It just gives you a lot more control and less stress in a really stressful environment for you, I'd say. And at the bare minimum, obviously ensure, you know, your critical employee information is captured as soon as possible. That's just going to save you muscle and grief further down the track. Communicate your club's policies and procedures. Again, if you can automate the process, fantastic. If not, certainly make sure all your employees have those policies and procedures. Clear communication and ongoing support. So again, I can't stress enough, from my experience at least, regular catch-ups with your employees. And I do recall at, you know, the Clubs New South Wales conference, there was a couple of talks. Those with employees is extremely important to keep them engaged, to show that they didn't really listen to them. And that's everything from us, folks. So thank you very much for joining us today. What I'll do is I'll just see if we have any questions. I'll open it up to everybody. And if anyone likes to ask any questions, please feel free to raise up their hands. Otherwise, we'll just have a quick look at the question box.